Thank you. We'll start off by a welcome. Councillor Les Sam.
Yeah, thank you. Regrets from Chief Hugh Breaker. He couldn't be here today. I know he would have liked to say some words. Today, I just want to welcome you here on Sishot lands to address a very distressing issue. We welcome the comments of the chiefs of British Columbia, the leaders of our tribal council, and the issue of funding cuts. The wealth of Canada flows from the traditional territories of the First Nations people. The wealth of Canada is huge. We see it all around us. And it's a shame that the pittance of dollars that flow to tribal councils is being slashed. That pittance of money is being slashed, and Canada should be shameful for that. So we welcome the words of our leadership to address that issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Les. Chu Uklama Wamish. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for everybody for coming out today. I'd just like to acknowledge our Hotwith and our Tyee Hotwith from our various Nuu-chah-nulth nations. And I'd also like to point out some of our dignitaries and people that are here that will be able to speak to the issues following this event. First, we have Dan Smith from the First Nation Summit, Jody Wilson-Raybould from the BC Assembly of First Nations, our BC Regional Chief, President of the Union of BC Indian Chiefs, Stuart Phillip, as well as I wanted to make sure I acknowledge again Councillor Les Sam for allowing the Sishot First Nation, or the Sishot First Nation for allowing us to be here on their territory. And I'd like to acknowledge all of our Hotwith. For those of you who don't know, these are our heads of our government here. Some of the men and women that you see here are the heads of our government of Nuu-chah-nulth nations. I'd also like to acknowledge the mayor, Mayor Douglas. We also have from the regional district, we have two representatives. We have Cindy Solda and we have Tony Bennett as well. Am I forgetting anybody? All right, so we have some very important business to take care of and news to take care of. So I'll be calling upon first President Cliff Atleo, and then we'll be asking Regional Chief Jody Wilson-Raybould, followed by Stuart Phillip to make a few comments. And then as mentioned after that, they'll be available, those individuals will be available for to talk separately after this. So thank you.
Stuart Works, Altukshit Hotware, Huktisu Tlawai, Wai Mamasni, Mary Douglas, Atlakisu Tsikasi, First Nations Summit, BC Assembly of First Nations, Union of BC Indian Chiefs. We have council members as well from our nations, and along with the staff, some of our staff for the New Channels Tribal Council. Today I speak on behalf of the Hotware of New Channels, the 14 nations, as well as the chiefs and councils. At a recent annual General Assembly meeting in that building there, the House of Shewish, they instructed us very clearly to not only raise the issue with governments, the annoyance and disappointment in the announcement in early September of funding cuts to tribal councils. The cuts are applied to major organizations Canada-wide, but here in British Columbia, the New Channels face the largest cut. We're going to be facing at least a 60% cut in our funding. And it comes at a time that is so contrary to the beginning of 2012, when Mr. Harper actually met with chiefs of Canada, First Nation chiefs of Canada, talking about a relationship with our people, talking about helping to build our nations and communities back up. And the manner in which these cuts were announced, actually, this government never ceases to amaze me how they ignore the law of Canada. The Supreme Court of Canada, through Haida and the Taku Tlingit, they talked about the importance and the need to consult our people. There was absolutely no consultation with the New Channel Tribal Council. And for that matter, I think a lot of tribal councils, Canada-wide and throughout British Columbia. But the 60% cut represents $750,000. And it'll probably mean, if it goes ahead, if there's no sanity that comes into play, at least 25 jobs of 154 that we have on staff that includes contracting projects. And you know, our Vice President spoke about what I think is actually an understatement in terms of the federal budget on communications. They expended a large amount of money on promoting the jobs in Canada, and some that have been completed already, you know, the tune of $16 million toward that. And I think that their budget for this exceeds $64 million that we actually state. But we've called upon our provincial leadership, as well as the communities that our people reside and work in. We're one of the larger employers in this town, and it's the reason that the regional district is here. It's the reason that the mayor is here, to support the New Channels in this fight. I think the federal government has picked a fight with us, and we're prepared to take them on, because our way of life as a people, you know, the work that we do to build up our communities. I happen to be old enough to have seen our people when they stood on their own feet, self-sustaining communities and families. And we want that back, and we're going to get it back. But by gosh, we're not going to get it with the help of the Conservative government of Canada, who chooses to disregard the legal requirement to confer and consult with our people. So I can't stress enough the impact this is going to have, not only amongst our people, but our neighbors and surrounding communities. And because I think probably more than half of the New Channels people live in communities that are in Port Alberni, that are in Victoria, that are in Nanaimo, and the funding we receive is designated for on-reserve support. But as New Channels, we do more than that. We support our people away from home the best that we can. And we're going to do everything we can to maintain what we have, because we recognize how vital and important it is. The formula that's being provided by the federal government has nothing to do with 9 of the 14 nations that are in isolated areas in Newfoundland. It has nothing to do with our performance, has nothing to do with our record as a tribal council. And when you get the Regional Director General of Aboriginal Affairs saying he knew nothing about it, when you get your local MP like James Lunny saying he didn't know anything about it, time somebody woke up and got to work and paid attention to the humanity. We represent over 10,000 people as Newfoundland. So I appreciate very much the media coming, and I'd like to invite Jody Wilson-Raybould.
Galakasla Tashot for allowing us here in your beautiful territory. I'd like to acknowledge the Hotwiyuth hereditary chiefs, matriarchs, the chiefs that are here, and the citizens of Newfoundland. My traditional name is Puglas. My other name is Jody Wilson-Raybould, and I come from the Muskama Dzawadenic people of Northern Vancouver Island. I stand here today as a council member in my own community of Waiwakai, and I am here today as the regional chief, proud to stand here as the regional chief of the BC Assembly of First Nations in support of the Newfoundland Tribal Council and their strong message of displeasure, bringing a united message from our national chief, Sean Atleo, and a message from all of the chiefs in British Columbia and across the country that stand in support of the Nuu-chah-nulth and in support of our First Nations in this tremendous period of transition and change, this tremendous period of nation building and rebuilding as our nations seek to move forward and establish and reestablish strong and appropriate government within our communities and within our territories. There is no question in this period that we're in that tribal councils and other organizations play a central role in supporting our nations in our rebuilding efforts, in supporting the programs and services that are being delivered to our citizens, and supporting our efforts to reassert our jurisdiction throughout our traditional territories, and recognizing the central role that they play is why the unilateral and imposed cuts that were announced back in September are so troubling and so disturbing. The funding formulas that have been imposed, funding formulas yet to be fully disclosed in terms of their impacts, their fundamental impacts to the work of our tribal councils and the impacts to our citizens on the ground are yet to be known fully. And as President Atleo indicated, these funding cuts, unilateral cuts, are being felt by our citizens in our communities. And the cuts completely fly in the face of what President Atleo said was the discussions that we had with Prime Minister Harper back in January at the First Nations Crown Gathering, wherein there was a commitment to establish a new fiscal relationship with the Government of Canada and our peoples. We're still waiting for that. A new fiscal relationship does not mean where one party imposes upon another party, but a new fiscal relationship means parties sitting down, discussing priorities and how we can work together, how we can share the revenues that come from our territories, and how we can work together to rebuild our societies and our nations. That is what we're asking for from the Government of Canada, not unilateral funding cuts, but how can you, Mr. Harper, support our nation building and rebuilding efforts Again, I stand here with my leadership, my other leadership from the province of British Columbia, and stand in complete solidarity with the New Toronto Tribal Council and our First Nations across this province in rejecting this imposed approach that will cut at our nation-building efforts, and look to the Government of Canada to do the right thing and sit down with our First Nations leaderships and work together on a new fiscal relationship that will support our nations moving forward and moving beyond the post-colonial door. I know that the National Chief wanted to be here, and the entire executive of the Assembly of First Nations stands in support of the Hatwiya